Patrick Stump, Fall Out Boy. Here's an example of a singer who can hit lots of different notes, lots of different ways, with different timbres, dynamics, intensity. It's really fun to dive into his singing and hear that he's not even using that many different pitches in these examples, but the way they're approached, it's really inspiring. And he makes really great, subtle use of twang. A lot different than a country singer, but you'll hear it as we go through these examples, and I'll certainly call it out. Now, with a guy like Patrick Stump, we're not going to be able to sound like him, and that shouldn't be our goal. Our goal should be to work through these examples, and through osmosis, through listening and introspection, we can do some of the same things that he's doing if we understand how to do them with our own voices. Things like compression-based distortion, using a little bit of vocal fry here and there, understanding how to access clean mix versus putting a little bit of grit behind it. All these things are things that Patrick Stump does really well, that he does it seemingly almost effortlessly, moving between these different sounds. And that's really what we're going to study here. But even more important than that, we're going to learn how to be free with the inspiration that we get from him.
Here comes this rising tide, so come on!
One maniac at a time, we will take it back.
We're pressing onward, it's all for the
And before we get into the first example, if you don't have a solid foundation for some of the things I mentioned earlier, mixed voice, clean versus distorted, compression-based grit, those sorts of things. If you don't have a solid foundation, there's no way you're going to be able to learn from what this singer does. If you do want to get a solid foundation for your singing so that you can apply things from other singers, be sure to click the link below and join my free vocal course. All right, here's the first example. Lots of subtle vibrato things going on, a medium amount of intensity, and there's some grit in there. On B.
I'll be the watcher. I'll be the watcher.
Now there's this sense that he's lighter on Al, and then he goes down to the B, and there's this clear grit. He's clean on Al, and then B, he's using a little bit of compression-based distortion. So, I'll be, right? It's not that, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's this idea of using the false chord area, the area above our larynx, to squeeze from our neck. I'll be the, and then there's this light vibrato thing where he's playing in that area right before he might break, and you hear it on the and watcher. I'll be the watcher! And there's almost this little crack at the end of watcher. Watcher! Listen.
I'll be the watcher.
Watcher! It's subtle, but it's there.
I'll be the watcher. I'll be the watcher.
Next.
'Cause we could be immortals.
Same notes, sort of, as the last example. But there's some interesting things to unpack here versus the last one.
'Cause we could be immortals.
He's much more clean. He's actually backed off, and there's some doubling going on, but he's backed off on the intensity for this part of the hook. 'Cause we could be immortals. But there's that nice light vibrato at the end as well, lighter than what I just did.
'Cause we could be immortals.
'Cause we could be immortals. And I'm exaggerating this aspect too, but there's this sense of, as he's entering his vibrato, this worried sound. I am in chest, and then I'm vibratoing, using the ghost, if you've seen some of my other videos. Which isn't diaphragmatic pushing, it's this rocking that's happening. That's how he's getting that sound. But at the same time, he's maintaining this clean vibe.
'Cause we could be immortals. 'cause we could be immortals.
Let's play with it a little more.
Cause we could be immortals.
See if I can clean it up.
Cause we,
Lighten it.
cause we could be immortals.
There we go.
Cause we could be immortals.
And there's a sense of freedom and abandon that we want to have that allows us to break up if we're going to break up as we're experimenting and playing. And it's this idea that even when we're singing clean, we're always on the verge of breaking up or of losing it. That's, I think, a big part of what's so compelling about his sound is that even when he is clean and confident, there is this sense that he's going to lose it any minute, maybe, but he always has this awesome sense of control at the same time. Absolutely the case when we go to experiment with example 3. Here we go. Ooh, a great chesty. Here comes! We want to get to the point where we're using a little bit of compression-based distortion. Of course, there's production-based distortion here as well. But you can hear his twang a little bit more here. If I'm going to unpack this tone a little bit, we have absolute all-out twang. Here comes this and if we push that up into mix, crow, we get the crow, right? We've talked about that before on the channel. But here's a good example, and in general, he's got just a little bit of this going on, especially when he's in more of his chestier range. So if we take this pitch and we here, like I'm whining that a little bit more. But if we chest it up a little bit, here comes, and then we hold off a little bit of air. Here comes, here comes, here comes. I'm putting more air through my nasal passage. I'm using a bit more chest, and I'm using compression as opposed to, here comes this rising tide. Here comes this rising tide. It's this manly sort of chesty thing that's very different from, say, how Gerard Way might approach this same thing. Here comes this rising nope. Here comes this rising tide, so come on. That's the essence of what he's doing in this line.
Here comes this rising tide, so come on.
I like how come on is clear, but he's playing to the distortion. Come on, come on. I'm going to experiment a little bit more with this line. Love it.
Here comes this rising tide, so come on. Here comes this rising tide, so come on.
Next. Really cool thing to do to get a handle on your compression mechanism, but it's fun getting into this vibe. Crosswalks and crossed hearts. Yeah. Across! Definitely big on crossed. Crosswalks! Crosswalks! He has that crosswalks and crossed hearts! Leaning into that chesty twang. Let's unpack that a little bit more. Compression, yeah, crosswalks and crossed hearts. Crosswalks and crossed hearts, yeah. Crosswalks and crossed hearts. Crosswalks and crossed hearts, yeah. Crosswalks and crossed hearts. Next.
One maniac at a time, we will take it back.
Ooh. One dark. So he has his more aggressive stuff where he's invoking that subtle twang. Here he's much darker. The larynx has dropped a bit. Not one, it's one. Still using his nasal passage, but his soft palate is higher and his back of his tongue is dropped. I talk about that a lot in my course. One maniac.
One maniac at a time.
There's also not a lot of airflow here. This is not one maniac at a time.
One maniac at a time. One maniac at a time.
One maniac at a time.
At a time.
Nice vibrato there.
One maniac at a time.
One maniac at a time. We will take it back.
Time, we will take it back. Time, we will take it back.
Now, at the level he's singing, dynamically, he's able to, with his vibrato, go into his head resonance without breaking.
One maniac.
If I was pushing real hard, one maniac, I could, if I was trying to get that light vibrato, I would break.
One maniac at a time. I'm in head voice. One maniac at a time. We will take it back.
Even at the end there,
We will take it back.
I'm dropped and loose enough, and I'm also quiet enough that I've got this thing going on. Pure chest, pure head, well supported, but not pushed. I'm not using any compression.
One maniac at a time, we will take it back.
Put it into your own voice after the inspiration kicks in.
One maniac at a time, we will take it back. We will take it back. One maniac at a time.
Light head voice vibrato.
One maniac at a time, we will take it back.
Next.
You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song.
Notice how when he gets up to that high note, he's clean, and then as he pushes just a little bit more, as that same note, the same line goes on, there's a little bit of grit put in. We don't want to overthink this, but we do want to know how to approach that high note cleanly first, so it doesn't just sound like we're screaming.
You know time.
You know. He's got this darker sound, but that twangy thing is still coming through on. But then there's not a lot of twang, really any, when he goes up to that high mixed note. Now, there's two ways to approach mix, and we've talked about this on the channel before. There's the dying cat way, and then there's the yawn way. Very different sounding, right? Those are the raw sounds that help us access our mix. He's definitely channeling yawn. Dropped larynx. Listen to the pitch here.
You know time crawls.
You know time. You know time. It's not, you know time. Hear the difference? More on mixed voice in a lot of my other videos. And if you really want to unpack how to get this dynamic mixed sound, check out my vocal course.
You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song.
You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song. Getting progressively more gritty as you approach the end of that line, but making sure you start with that, you know time. It's clean. You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song. Next.
Then I'll raise you like a phoenix.
So he's got that twangy sound on Then I'll Raise You.
Then I'll raise you.
Then, mild amount of compression-based distort. Then I'll raise you.
Then I'll raise you.
Then I'll raise you.
Then I'll raise you like a phoenix.
Like a phoenix. So then he's going into pure head voice there. Then I'll raise you. Then, not then. He's using some compression, and he's using that twang to get that almost laid back sound and aggressive at the same time.
Then I'll raise you.
Bright. Then I'll raise you. Then it sounds a little weird when I imitate it, but as I get that sound and that feel, then back off, it becomes my own voice.
Then I'll raise Then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Then I'll raise you like a phoenix. It's fun to slow them down and see what happens to your own voice.
Next. Another lighter, higher note. Not, come on, come on! It's not that. It's this, come on, come on, come on, and let me in. There's a little bit of grit on the way down. Maybe not grit. Come on, come on, come on, and let me in. It's intensity and compression, but not grit. Very clean. Come on, and let me in. Come on. That high, yeah. That's the push, the mix, and the yawn approach. Come on, come on, come on. That's hard to get. That's a hard balance between, come on, come on, come on. It's easy to want to break, to push too hard, but we want that clean, teetering intensity that he gets so well. Come on, come on, and let me in. Next. Ooh, here's the twang in all of its glory, right? The sweetness never lasts. The sweetness never lasts. The sweetness never lasts. Last. And it might sound ridiculous when you're imitating, but the end goal is not imitation. The sweetness never lasts. The sweetness never lasts, you know. The sweetness never lasts, you know. No. The sweetness never lasts, you know. So how can we dial that back and put it into our own voices? The sweetness never lasts, you know. Well, he's got this forward placement on sweet, the sweet. I've talked about belting that invisible ball of energy. The sweetness never lasts, sweetness never lasts, you know. The sweetness never lasts, you know. Really neat to be able to transfer that resonance in your face back and forth to get that sort of change up. Over the same note, you get all these different characteristics. And the last example. Okay, he's clean. I remember. And he's accessing it. It's not this I remember. Somewhere in between there, right? This is a mixed note, even though it sounds chesty and it's clean. Not like that. I remember. Not I remember. It's in between those two approaches. Yeah, I remember. Not quite that either. I remember. My voice is, I'm inserting a little bit of that compression-based distortion, but it's primarily clean. And that's how I would sing that note in that range. I could clean it up a little bit more. I remember. Patrick Stump, ladies and gentlemen. Clean, aggressive, little twangy. Lots of different variants on every note that he sings. Lots of expression. I really enjoyed this one. This was a by request. I got a lot of people asking about him. Now, if you enjoyed this video, check out my In the Style of Brendan Urie video. I actually cover an entire Brendan Urie song, and then I break down different aspects of Brendan Urie's voice as well. And once again, be sure to check out my free vocal course linked below if you want to develop a foundation to do the things that you see and hear me doing, being inspired by these singers. We'll see you for more.